Well, I hope you're a loyal viewer of The Sweat Monday through Friday, in the mornings on the DraftKings YouTube and Twitch pages, and the Slate, for that matter, Monday through Friday in the afternoons. But I'll tell you this, you've come to the right place, because this is the catch-all. This is the sports show that we've got going on the Slate. Reid T. Fowler, I'm Adam Kaufman. We are together with you this time every single Thursday for about an hour. We got plenty to cover. The Ryder Cup, will get to it. It's right into the wheelhouse of my man, Sweet Tea. And of course, week 3 in the NFL is on the horizon. It begins tonight with what is sure to be anything but a barn burner. How are you, buddy?
Hey, this is what we said last week about Washington and New York, and that was an exciting game. It looks like all the primetime games, Koff, have been fairly exciting. Right?
You know what? I agree with that across the board. Like right? Thursday, Sunday, Monday, we've had good primetime games almost without fail so far.
Yeah. So this one, let's keep the streak going, man. Sam Darnold -8 on the road. Let's go.
See, I would love to agree with that. I really would. But it's the guy that you just mentioned, Sam Darnold, is not the one that I'm skeptical of. It would be the quarterback on the other side, the 3rd round pick for Houston, making his first career start, and that is Davis Mills. Listen, you were saying before we came on air, you're just thinking out loud about your Survivor League and, how do I feel about Carolina winning this game? Or, I saw our guy Brendan Glasheen, who's become a gambling fanatic. You look at what he's been putting out on social media lately. How do I feel about Carolina -8.5? That's what the DraftKings Sportsbook has in this very moment. Reid, if this game is not a 2 or 3 score game at the half, I will be surprised. To me, Carolina winning this game going away is about the surest bet of the week.
Whoa, surest bet. Well, we have Cardinals at Jacksonville. We have we have Jets at Broncos. You think this is more sure than those 2 games?
Listen, you wouldn't be having a Survivor League conundrum within yourself if you weren't so locked in on other games. This right here is going to be an easy win for Carolina. Mark my words.
So those 2 things have never been uttered in the same sentence in over the last 5 years. Easy win for Carolina.
That's a great point.
So not just yet, right? Not yet. If I had a lead Corso, not just yet, right? Not yet. The reason why you feel this way, right, is, obvious reasons of a rookie quarterback, a lot of injuries on the wide receiver side with Nico Collins being out, Danny Amendola doubtful. I don't know if he's
not playing. He's out.
Yeah, he's out. Okay, so exactly. He's out. You have a carousel of running backs: Philip Lindsay, David Johnson, Mark Ingram, which I'll get to in a little bit. Mm-hmm. You have a run defense that's bottom 4 in terms of any metric, by that matter, rush. You have Christian McCaffrey, who averages over 20 attempts in Carolina's wins. And so everything points to Carolina, right? The reason why I was sort of capitulating on Carolina in Survivor, and why I'm choosing them now, like you mentioned, not just for the obvious reasons of Davis Mills and the Houston Texans, just not having much there's no dialogue, there's no rhetoric to say, okay, there's no reasoning to say why Houston can win this game unless everyone gets injured on the Panther side.
I was just going to say, unless you believe Christian McCaffrey's going down in quarter number 1, and then Sam Darnold goes down after him.
Well, stranger things have happened. We see San Francisco, every single running back, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit. But if you take a look at Carolina's schedule, right, moving forward, right, and this is something that I don't suggest unless you want to play with a little bit of risk, right? Just try and get one of these kind of in between teams out early, you don't have to choose them later, is that their schedule doesn't get easier than right now, right? If you were to forecast 10 weeks from now and you're still in it, and you between Carolina, Houston, Jacksonville, and the Jets, or maybe it's not those teams, or the Washington football team, the Giants, right? Some of those teams that you don't necessarily know about just yet, Cincinnati Bengals, and they're facing that's the reason why choosing Carolina right now might be the play. It's just that 8 points on the road, you just never know, right? On Thursday, some wonky things happen on Thursday. So there's a small iota of trepidation with choosing Carolina this early in a survivor pool, because you want to just hammer these really good teams just to make sure you stay in it for the long haul.
So Reid, If we were back in Simland, this is where I'd be shouting out like Smashland, I get ready to clip this. Here's how I feel. Okay. It's in the same vein that when you and I think this was off air actually, but in the same way that we were talking at the end of last week, and I was saying to you, not so intelligently because we were playing against each other in fantasy, but I said to you, who should I play, Marvin Jones Jr. or Logan Thomas? And I'm going back and forth. And ultimately you just said to me, look, don't overthink it. Just play who you want to play. Well, that's kind of how I feel about this game, which is don't overthink it. Okay. Carolina has Christian McCaffrey, who, forget this game, he's arguably the best running back on the entire slate this week. He's a solid play. If you got him in your season long, feel good, folks, because he's not only dominant on the ground, he is the second most targeted pass catcher, if you will, in that offense to Sam Darnold. He trusts him. Darnold likes to lean on him, likes to lean on DJ Moore. You also have a multitude of weapons that Darnold has, whether it's those two, whether it's, Robbie Anderson, you could make a case for a couple other guys, not so much Dan Arnold. If you're thinking about a tight end, I probably wouldn't go in that direction, but there are different guys that he could look to. Darnold has been very good. He's completed about 70% of his passes so far, has only been sacked a few times, has just the one interception. He has looked nothing like he did when he was a Jet here in his first couple of games for the Carolina Panthers. Now, if you want to say part of that is who they're playing, that's fine. All wins, all games, they count the same during the regular season. They beat up on the Jets in week 1, a team with a rookie quarterback, guess what, facing another guy making his first career start in the NFL. In the second week, took down a Saints team that, Jameis Winston was obviously not remotely last week what he was in week 1 when he threw for 5 touchdowns. Fine. But let's give some credit to the defense as well. The defense right now is the best in the NFL when it comes to points allowed, yards allowed, pass yards allowed, rushing yards allowed, has 10 sacks. That is the most in the entire league through 2 games. And again, fine, it's 2 games. I'm not telling you Carolina is the best team in the league, technically one of 7 undefeateds to this point. But this is not me saying, like, watch it, like, start them up. Carolina's going to win the Super Bowl. We're talking about Carolina on a Thursday night against a bad Houston team, a depleted Houston team, and a Houston team that is going with a rookie quarterback taken in the 3rd round who didn't look so great in relief of Tyrod Taylor last week. It's just, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it.
Tell me how you really feel, Carl.
Sure. I'm saying take the under because I'm not confident it's going to be a high-scoring game. But yeah. Take the points, man. 8.5.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And you take a look at this division and New Orleans out, they had a lot of their offensive coaches were on the COVID, like they couldn't travel. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that definitely hurt. Didn't help, but it's still the players on the field who were making plays. They just did nothing. They had nothing. The Saints did. And credit to the Panthers, right? They held Jameis to like 111 or like 122 passing yards. A guy who had 5 touchdowns the week previous. They didn't allow a single. I don't think they allowed any touchdowns for that matter for the Saints. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The one thing too that you like about the Panthers is their defensive line. Their defensive line is strong. Brian Burns is playing well. Shaq Thompson is playing well. These rookie cornerbacks are playing well. And what do they do to a rookie quarterback in game 1? They showed what they can do to a rookie quarterback. So. And look, Davis Mills out of Stanford, right? Like you mentioned, 3rd round pick. He's got some arm strength, but he's made a lot of silly mistakes in college, made a lot of dumb passes in college. Wasn't projected to start this early or at all this season. And now he gets thrusted into the prime time. Look, strange things have happened, right? I'm not saying that this is a lock, an absolute lock in terms of the points, because we've seen also Houston again with Tyrod Taylor. Brandon Cooks is still there. He's still playing well. And if you're Davis Mills, it would behoove you to target Cooks 1,000 times in this game. Is it going to work? Who knows?
So I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to ask you about that. So let's go right. Like, I mean, if you're making, we'll get to DFS. If you're making a showdown lineup tonight, I have to imagine you're going to play Brandon Cooks. Like if you're not playing Brandon Cooks, you're thinking about differentiation and winning a GPP and chasing the million and all of that. If you haven't in season long, you better have a hell of a bench if you're not playing Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is a guy that you're going to start. And I say this as a Brandon Cooks owner for one of my season long teams. I have a little bit of concern. One, we talked about how good the Carolina defense has been this year, again, through just 2 games. Deep secondary. You got Bouye coming off the suspension as well. So there's, they've got some length there. They've got options in terms of the secondary at corner. But on top of that, you just alluded to it. Davis Mills has no one to throw to. Like Danny Amendola, 6 for 6, but he's not playing. And there is not a single guy other than Brandon Cooks through 2 games who has been targeted more than 6 times. He spread the ball around a little bit, whether it's Taylor or Mills or whomever has been throwing it. They've spread it around a little bit, but 21 targets, 10 per on average for Brandon Cooks. No one else averaging more than 3, Reid. No one else averaging more than 3. So I guess I just wonder, is Mills, who I certainly believe, and I think you do too, is going to be playing from behind. He's going to have to throw the ball. He's going to have to air it out. The backfield situation is garbage anyway. If they are going to be throwing it that much, we're going to find out, is Cooks matchup proof, defense proof? He's just going to get the dozen targets and he's going to do with them what he will? Or is Mills going to have to look in another direction because Carolina can work to lock down Brandon Cooks, knowing who else you got?
Yeah, well, you got Chris Conley, and there was a question from Mike Drumma about thoughts on Chris Conley. Like, I don't mind it, right? Well, who else is out there? I actually like from a leverage standpoint, it's Anthony Miller. They haven't had Anthony Miller in the first 2 games. He's going to be active tonight. He's going to take over the slot responsibilities and duties from Amendola. And what if you're a rookie quarterback, what are you looking for, right? Especially the defense with their ears pinned back, about to get at you. You look at screen passes, especially early in the game, right? Screen passes. So maybe David Johnson becomes someone that you take a look at. Philip Lindsay. If you're game stacking or if you're team stacking Houston, I think one of those guys, because there's 3, it's going to be hard to choose because all of them, well, 2 out of the 3, Mark Ingram doesn't really present any sort of value as pass catcher.
No, I think
David Johnson, Philip Lindsay. Yeah, they can make some waves in terms of production in this game. And I mentioned Anthony Miller on the tight ends. You're going to try to give Davis Mills, if you're the OC, you're going to try and say, okay, I want you to feel comfortable in this offense, right? You're not going to be throwing maybe the double hitches. You maybe not be throwing the RPOs where you got like the wide receiver choice routes on Brandon Cooks. That's not what you're doing. It's like Tyrod could do that. That's not what you're doing, Davis Mills. You are going to be given this many plays and then create from those plays. And I think a lot of those stay within 15 yards, at least of the line of scrimmage. Now, what does that mean? It means tight ends. It means running backs out of the backfield. And it means those slot receivers, right, to get in between those zones. If Carolina's up by 20 points, right, or even 14 points, right, they're going to sit back in zone. They're going to blitz. They're going to sit back in play like a man zone type of situation. And those type of defenses work so well for guys in the middle, like an Anthony Miller, like a Jordan Akins or a Farrell Brown. I don't know which one to choose out of those 2 guys. That's why I'm a little bit worried about a guy like Brandon Cooks, because he is a field stretcher. He is a guy that can make, he can run past guys, but he's not someone, in my opinion, that can win one-on-one. Like, he's not going to create his own. He needs to be with like a Tyrod Taylor to get in the ball in these certain situations. That's why I'm a little scared. But to your point, Kauf, who else is there? I mentioned names, but those are just names.
Yeah, none that you feel comfortable with.
None that you feel comfortable about. So like Brandon Cooks, you see his line right there is at 67.5.
Yep.
I have him for maybe around 80 yards right now, 70, 80 yards, which is not bad in PPR. You're playing 8 points, right? You get 5 catches in there. It's not a bad outing for Brandon Cooks with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, especially if he does find the end zone. But even if he doesn't, like you said, he's getting 13, 14 points, something like that. But if let's continue with that. You're looking at the same thing I am. Anyone jump out at you? Obviously, you like Cooks with the over, however, close the margin. In terms of wide receiver props, what do you like?
Yeah, so I mentioned Anthony Miller. I think his receptions prop right now is over 2.5. I think it's plus 110 or plus 120.
Correct. Plus 135 at over
plus 135. Yeah, and I think this is where I like the variance. I like the unknown with Davis Mills and Anthony Miller. Right, we haven't seen Davis Mills start, and we haven't seen Anthony Miller yet. So the books, DK Sportsbook, all of them are like, what? How is this going to roll out? How is this going to plan out? How's this going to be? Right, like we just don't know. And so I do think that from a value perspective on the Houston side, I do like Anthony Miller to go over 2.5 receptions in that slot position there, just because I like the variance. If I'm taking a look at other props, like I mentioned, I'd probably go to Christian McCaffrey, his over rushing attempts. I believe it's at 19 or 18 and a half, if I'm not mistaken. Last time I checked, 19 and a half. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And if you take a look at in Carolina's wins, like I mentioned, he's averaged around 23 rushes. And again, trying to get him going. Maybe they sit him and rest him because he's coming off of a pretty bad injury last season. I get that. But I also think that you need to get him reps, and that even within 3.5 quarters, even if they're blowing out Houston, I think he gets there at 23 attempts. This guy's getting every single opportunity out of the backfield. And Chuba Hubbard is not coming in and spelling him for a lot, if anything, right? Maybe 1 or 2 plays if he's tired and he needs a rest. But in those games that they win, Carolina, he averages over 23 attempts. And so I'm not laying the 120 juice on over 19 and a half for Christian McCaffrey, like you mentioned, I think is a solid play because bottom 4, Kauf, in PFF grade, that Houston rush defense. Like if you're playing in IDP leagues, individual defensive players, I think Zach Cunningham is a solid play because I think he's going to have a ton of tackle opportunities. He sat last week, quarter 1, for disciplinary issues. So he only played like 70% of the snaps. But this week, Kamu Grugier-Hill is out. And I think some of the other guys on the defense are out as well for Houston. So there's going to be a lot of tackle opportunities for that linebacking core in Houston. So if you're playing in IDP leagues, which some people do, me included, I think Zach Cunningham's a solid play this week.
So we don't currently have a prop for rush attempts for Chuba Hubbard, but I do wonder because, you were talking about it, obviously, if this game is as lopsided, especially early, and when I say early, I mean first half or 2.5 quarters, as I believe it's going to be, I do wonder how much they spell McCaffrey. And if they just, it's all well and good to want to get him reps. And I agree with that fundamentally, but if you get up by a lot, you just start to, I don't know, kind of, you get those fear flashbacks. You want to
take them out.
Avoid injury. If you don't need them, obviously, just take it off the board. And all of a sudden Hubbard's getting you just like 15 kill the clock rushes in the second half. I think that's not crazy to think about.
Yeah. So what I think from a totality or from a strategy standpoint with player props, Kauf, is that if you look at week 1 to week 2, right, there's such an overreaction of like passing yards, right? These guys just throw a ton. And then the number on these guys, their passing total, yards total is extremely high. And in week 2, right, the amount of unders that hit on those props, they hit at a much higher rate because there is an overreaction. So week 3, I think there is sort of a balancing of the scale, so to speak. And if you take a look at percentage of over wins from week 1 to week 2, rushing attempts is hit on around 53%. So just from a number standpoint, those rushing attempts, those overs have hit more than they haven't. Actually, the biggest percentage wins of any rushing prop is passing yards, right? Because now there's sort of this like back and forth of that needle moving, that midpoint moving. And especially now, and I think Jeff mentioned this on the sweat this morning, is that Davis Mills over 211 passing yards is something that he likes because maybe out of necessity, maybe that's just too low for an NFL starting quarterback, which both are true. But I do think that when you look at rushing attempts for a guy like Christian McCaffrey, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him have at least, 75% of this rushing prop already locked up in the first half, right? Because like I mentioned, they cannot stop the run at all, at all. And he's getting 98% of the snaps. He's not coming out for like a JD McKissick. He's not coming out in a 2-minute drill at all. He's getting all of them.
Is there a particular prop, line, bet, whatever it may be, but just to kind of put a bow on the DK Sportsbook for this game, and then we'll go over to DFS, and then we'll get to the main slate. Is there a specific bet that you really like tonight? Obviously, I have hammered home that I like the over and the under, for that matter. The over on the line, the under on the points. Do you is something specific you really like?
Yeah, some of those player props that I mentioned, I do like. 8.5 is a lot, but I think I'm leaning more towards your sentiment. You're not getting any value in the line, right? Minus 110. It's not like you're getting any value off of that pick if you're taking the Panthers. It might just be honestly, Koff, to take the under on the Houston team total, right? I forget what that number is, but do we expect them to get a lot of points I think when you look at 43, you might have to go to game lines. When you look at the number of 43 total, that's such a low number. And like last week, I think we were on here and I mentioned I really like the over, but that's with Terry McLaurin, that's with Sterling Shepard, Daniel Jones, Taylor Heineke, not Tyler Heineke, Logan Thomas. You have much better players in that game than you do from a totality standpoint in this game. So I do kind of like the over just from a value, but if I'm probably getting closer to it, I'm going to lean towards the under, or maybe lean towards the under of team total on Houston side, and maybe play the over just because I think Carolina is going to be able to score a ton of points just to hedge a little bit.
Our man, undercover boss Tom T. Pike, throws this out. I like it. Thoughts on a player parlay with CMC rushing 100 plus, DJ Moore at 100 plus receiving yards, plus 850.
Ooh. I got DJ Moore at around 80 and a half, like 85 yards tonight. I do think that Robbie Anderson gets going. He's the guy, T. Pike. If he's a guy that could get you that 100-yard game, right? Like 4 receptions, 100 yards. We've seen it, man, time and time again. Robbie Anderson gets those big plays. What they're doing with DJ Moore is that they're giving him the ball a lot closer to the line of scrimmage. The same thing talking about Mike Williams is that they're getting these playmakers the ball closer to the line of scrimmage, then allowing them to use their athletic ability to get out, to beat their man and maybe get those 8-10 yards yak. But he's probably the guy, the Robbie Anderson one. If I'm looking at a prop, is that if you can to get that, and you're probably going to get a little bit juicier odds because DJ Moore is right now a better statistical receiver than Robbie Anderson.
We're about halfway through the show here with you till just before 6 Eastern. Still talking Thursday night football. Reid, Koff. Let's move over to DFS daily, because as we know, of course, there's another million on the line tonight. The NFL Showdown, $2.5 million Thursday night millionaire with $1 million going to first place. We encourage you to get in. In fact, it looks like there's already almost 200,000 entries in there, but jump on in the DraftKings lobby, $15 to enter. And what's interesting here, Reid, is, just looking at some of the projections that I've seen out there, and people go to different places for those, obviously, but we know like the chalky captain, he's going to be even higher owned probably a captain than he is in the flex. Christian McCaffrey, he's going to be insanely popular tonight, and he should be. But sort of to the point of what you were just talking about, if you're thinking about differentiation, to me, you're like, there's just no scenario where you're going to fade Christian McCaffrey. Like, you're really banking on something weird happening if you're doing that. But there aren't too many ways to make a unique lineup captaining Christian McCaffrey. So that leads you obviously to thinking about, all right, well, if I'm not paying north of 20K to captain CMC, and I'm going to pay down even ever so slightly at captain and look in another direction, what about a DJ Moore, a Robbie Anderson? If you believe that, Sam Darnold and these guys, they're going to get off to a high flying hot start, score a couple early touchdowns, maybe they're in the air, McCaffrey's not part of it, couple long games, these two guys could be flirting with 100 yards or one over the other, whomever it is that you like, paying down the $5,000 or more. I mean, $5,000 just for DJ Moore takes you down to 15.9. You want to go all the way down to Robbie Anderson, that's like half the price of CMC at 11.7. Then you can obviously inflate your flex position that much more. Could you make a good argument for doing that?
You could. Like with DJ Moore, right? You're hoping for those touchdown upsides, obviously touchdown upside.
Targets will be there, at least based on what we've seen in those 2 games.
Yeah. So in that sense, right, I do think that from a matchup standpoint, he gets Vernon Hargreaves, and that's excellent. That is an excellent matchup for DJ Moore. And so you like that from the captain spot, 15.9. But if I'm paying up of the captains and we're taking away CMC, I'm looking at Sam Darnold at 16.8. Just because of what I think he's going to be able to do in terms of getting it to a myriad of different receivers in this matchup, including Christian McCaffrey, right? Sam Darnold allows you to get the DJ Moore points. It allows you to get CMC. So you can get both of those guys along with Sam Darnold, right? Along with what he's going to be able to do. I do think also, if I'm looking at it from a extreme leverage position, trying to take down a milli maker, because that's what we're here to do. I do think David Johnson presents the biggest upside from the Houston side. It's not Davis Mills. Just because he's going to be throwing a ton doesn't mean he's going to be completing it. David Johnson is probably the most athletic player on that team, not named Brandon Cooks right now. And I think it would allow Houston much more of an ability to have continuity. Because one thing you don't want with a rookie quarterback, right, is to confuse him. I mentioned that earlier. You don't want to confuse the guy, right? Because they can get confused easily. You and I can get confused, and we're not even playing quarterback.
Ain't that the truth?
Ain't that the truth, right? And to have someone in that backfield more than like doing a carousel of 3 different running backs, like they do with Tyrod, and Tyrod's able to be able to do that, right? I could see David Johnson being that guy that they rush between the tackles, they keep on the field, because if you're Houston, you want to tire out this defense. You want to keep them on the field. Again, I would not be surprised if Houston goes no huddle and tries to get out quickly, especially if they win the coin toss and get out early. And David Johnson, to me, is that guy that presents that value, who can run between the tackles and who can catch out of the backfield. So I think David Johnson is someone that I'm fairly interested in, and he's really cheap, right? I mean, like, I don't even see him. I think you have to scroll down a little bit more to see David Johnson for
5,400 in the flex.
Yeah, exactly. In a captain spot, like he's 8,100. That means you can fit Christian McCaffrey. That means you can fit maybe Chris Conley. You can fit a ton of guys in your lineup if you captain a guy like David Johnson.
You mentioned Davis Mills before, and normally, and I feel like we've had this conversation probably a million times. Normally, if I'm just thinking about the showdown format in a vacuum, of course, I'm inclined to want to play both quarterbacks, unless, of course, you've just got so many stud running backs or receivers or tight ends or some combination that, like, it's a Kansas City. Yeah, I mean, it's a Kansas City Tampa Bay matchup. Then sure, like you might wind up fading Brady or Mahomes, in an effort to stack one side or something like that. This game is not that, as we know. So, Davis Mills, even still, I feel like he is going to be a lower owned guy. I'm just not inclined to want to put him in there.
He is, especially in the flex spot, right? Like, you're either going to pay captain because you want to acquire all of those points and get the 1.5x. So he's probably not going to be in a flex, like in a flex spot at all.
I mean, unless you're just looking at it and saying, look, they're going to be from behind a ton. They're going to be throwing the ball like crazy. So maybe there's an opportunity to get me points. Yeah.
Like, I mean, could you like 30%, maybe less than 30% in the flex? Like that's fairly low, right? For a quarterback now, starting quarterback.
I don't think it's going to be that high, Reid.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Then, right? Like maybe I'm just overshooting it because I'm not used to quarterbacks in the showdown lineup being that low. So if that's the case, then I mean, like I mentioned, the one thing about Carolina, if there is a chink in their armor, it's the offensive line allowing pressures. Like the Jets got to Sam Darnold 11 pressures, but they only got 2 sacks. Saints didn't do much, but we've seen Sam Darnold get pressured quite a bit, right? Like, and that's why I like Sam Darnold's rushing prop. I think it's at 6.5, so that's fairly low. But so if that's the case, right, and they're in this game, then, or if even like Davis Mills could come out and absolutely take the socks off people, and that's again, there's that trepidation that you just don't know. You don't know. And in these showdowns, you have to go in with a little bit of a YOLO mentality of everyone's going to think about not playing Davis Mills.
Right. I mean, that's like, if you're thinking about differentiation, Captain Davis Mills.
Yeah. Even the Houston defense. I mentioned I spent 10 good minutes saying why defense is not great, but you don't think Sam Darnold can turn the ball over a couple times, pick 6? It's all you need from a defense, right? So I'm not saying to go play them, but I'm just saying, when you talk about variance, you talk about these Thursday night games on a short week, right? Carolina's on a short week. They just have 2 good, like, who knows? Houston has all of these things playing against them. You don't think right now they're saying no one expects us to win,
right?
And they do that and they come out. Yeah, oh, trust me, they're not going to just roll over. They might not have the talent to stay with them, but they're going to make this a fight.
I mean, what will his captain number be? 3%? 4%?
No, I think it'll be higher than that.
Yeah,
I do. Maybe like 8.
I'm curious to look. I'm honestly
7.
curious to look when that game gets going in a few hours. Another
7.
guy we haven't. I don't think it's going to be. I tops out at 5 in my
6.5. Okay, 6.5.
That's your line. Under.
I'm coming closer to you.
Under. Just talking you down. A guy we have not really mentioned, if at all. I haven't mentioned him. Maybe you did and I missed it. But a guy who I think could be a sneaky good play tonight because he hasn't been this dominant producer, but he's getting targets. What about I want to see what his price is too. What about rostering Terrace Marshall tonight?
Oh, Terrace?
Yeah, Terrace Marshall.
Having a walk about the Terrace Marshall?
I'm thinking about it. What's his salary? $4,000.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love me some Terrace Marshall.
I am drawn to some Terrace Marshall tonight.
Yeah. I love the guy. Speedy, plays that slot position. Right. This would be the game to get him going. This would be the game to get your rookies to start, producing. And we've seen Terrace Marshall run a lot of routes. He's going to be the guy in 3 wide receiver sets. He's in the starting lineup and he's not gotten a ton of targets, but
9 targets through 2 games. That's not bad.
It's not bad, especially when you have DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, right?
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
I think Robbie Anderson only has 9 targets as well. I think all of them are going to DJ Moore.
Yeah, they're mostly going Moore and McCaffrey, but let me see.
No, I like Terrace Marshall. I think when you look at
also. Yep.
Yeah, 9 targets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, right? Like, Darnold could absolutely hone in on Terrace Marshall. The tight ends aren't doing much in Carolina, like you mentioned.
Gross. Both sides.
So yeah, absolutely. To see someone like a Terrace Marshall pop up and be productive in this game, yeah, I'd absolutely see it. I'd be more inclined, honestly, and I love DJ Moore. I think he's someone that you can easily have confidence playing. You can captain him. I'm not going to talk anybody off of him. But from a contrarian standpoint, maybe fading a guy like a DJ Moore and playing Terrace Marshall is something to consider just because of if you're up, right? He could get 8 targets. If he gets a touchdown at 4K and he's in your a touchdown is already giving you 1.5x.
Yeah.
Right. 3 or 4 catches, you're already at 2x. You want a 3x with your guys. So can he get to 12 points is essentially what you're trying to do. Right. Touchdown is 6. And if you can get you 30 and 3, there it is.
Look, we already know. I mean, if you're playing a cash game, you're captaining McCaffrey. We don't even need to talk about it. But if you're going after the million or you're just playing a larger GPP in general, these are some of the conversations you kind of got to have with yourself and think about, because it's while I don't think it's going to be a good game from a roster construction standpoint, it's an interesting game. And, we've hit on a lot of the reasons why. So with about 15 minutes left in the show, why don't we go to the main slate? And I know you've been over the course of the week, especially on the sweat and on the slate as well, pining over the DK Sportsbook and looking at what odds jump out to you, what stands out. I know you mentioned earlier a couple of the games that you think are going to be pretty lopsided. Which game beyond your Raiders bias are you most intrigued by this weekend?
Hey, 3-0, baby. We're coming in on 3-0. Like the Raiders.
I'm sure you saw, by the way, the Dan Carlson stuff yesterday.
Oh yeah, that's why kickers, ban kickers.
I love it. Kickers lost against himself in fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. Even knock on wood if you're with me. No, Rossi, close your ears, but ban kickers, please. Yeah, no, like the Raiders, they have a good shot. Miami's down, obviously. Tua, Jacoby Brissett did not look good, man. He did not look good. But what you have with the Raiders, trust me on this one, guys, because I've been watching them for the better part of 2 decades. They will disappoint when you least expect it. That's just scar tissue. That's not me. Congo Cab, if you're listening, trust me, man. I'm a Raider. I am silver and black through and through, but I'm just worried, right? You always got to be worried. Having said that, yes, I like the Raiders. I like the Raiders in this position. Derek Carr has given you the most passing yards in the NFL. He looks great, finally getting comfortable in that offense. His defense looks fast. Henry Ruggs is finally getting into his, or it looks like it, is finally getting there. Brian Edwards is going to be a solid player. Darren Waller is Darren Waller. He's an absolute beast. Josh Jacobs is practicing, I think. So Kenyon Drake might not necessarily have to take on the lion's share of the carries, and Peyton Barber is Peyton Barber. So I do like it from a Raider standpoint. The game that I'm most interested in, is Chicago and Cleveland, because I want to see Justin Fields, man. I have been very overtly aggressive towards Matthew Nagy, not to him, about him.
Yes.
Because I've never talked to
Is that why we're getting all those emails from the Chicago
I've never
area?
talked to Nagy in my life. I want to see how he plays. I want to see how he operates with playing with the starters. That was my biggest gripe in the offseason, in the preseason. He did not go out with the ones for whatever reason. So he was only playing with the twos. He now gets a full week of practice and preparation against Cleveland. I want to see how he does. So I'm extremely excited because I think he was the second best quarterback coming out of the draft. I thought he should have gone over Zach Wilson, over Trey Lance, and Trey Lance is going to be good, I think. But when you got a guy like Justin Fields, someone who has the right hand or shoulder, who's fast, man. What do you run, a 4.3 something 40 or 4.4 40 at the quarterback position? You start talking now about, for fantasy, the Konami cheat code, which is a rushing quarterback. And on top of that, you get a guy for your offense to completely change the dynamics. Andy Dalton does not pass a ball 15 yards past the line of scrimmage. He just doesn't. He doesn't do that. Now you're opening up this entire offense. David Montgomery is going to love it. Allen Robinson is going to love it. So I'm extremely excited to watch this game from a fan standpoint. Betting it, probably going to stay away, just because you just don't know how it's going to lay out, right? Because there's too many unknowns. I'm also interested to see how Kansas City and the Chargers, I think, to see how they rebound, right, Kauf? I mean, they lost in a epic fashion. If you're a CEH manager in fantasy, you do not like what you're seeing from him. If you're a Chief faithful, you do not like what just happened to your team. But this is vintage Chiefs, right? And Andy Reid probably in the back of his mind is saying, good this happened in the second week, right? Because that means that now we'll get our heads out of our you-know-what. I think we can just go in because we have Patrick Mahomes with 5 minutes left, which all of us think 90% of the group thought was, oh, he's going to do this. They're going to win. Like, this is not even a question. They're going to win. And then he fumbles. So I'm interested to see how both of these teams, right, both coming off of losses. Chargers should have won. The Chiefs should have won. AFC West, obviously, that I'm partial to. I want to see how this plays out. And that's pretty much it. I think there are some other teams and other games from a DFS standpoint that are fairly interesting. The Arizona Jacksonville obviously is really interesting to me. I think Seattle, Minnesota, again, Tyler Lockett is playing all out of his gourd. Like, this guy had not
He's been nuts.
It's like Tyler Lockett is great. I love watching Tyler Lockett.
I faded him last week when I was making my classic lineups, thinking he can't do it again.
Well, because you thought like everyone else thought.
Yeah.
Which is, well, not everyone else. You thought like how I was thinking, which is they can't put two, like if you look at his last 2 years game logs, he has not put together two back-to-back 100-yard games very often. And if he does, then it's like few and far between. He usually goes 50 DK fantasy points to 3 the next week.
Yeah.
So for him to get 2 of those games back to back is like DK Metcalf is squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like he is that type of receiver. He said he came out today and said, I don't care if Tyler Lockett and Jeff Swaim get those touchdowns. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. All right. Why else would you try to do the 100-meter dash? Why else would you do all the things? Yes, you do, DK. And that's why you're one of the better receivers in the NFL, is because you care about that. So I'm thinking a big game is coming out of DK Metcalf. He will not be held down for this long. Trust me. And Minnesota's defense and their secondary is not great. We saw Arizona completely tear them apart, and we saw Cincinnati completely tear them apart. Not completely tear them apart, but win. Jamar Chase go for over 100 yards and a touchdown. So I also like this game as well.
Our producer, Eamon, a.k.a. Amon, says, wonder if they do air it out or go safe with the Mac Jones offense. What do you think, Reid? We've been hearing about it here in New England. It's been kind of a big thing nationally, too, but mostly locally. The whole, are they ever going to let Mac Jones throw the ball? He's the top-rated rookie so far, but he's conservative. He only has, I think it's like 5.7 air yards per attempt, which is 29th out of 33 qualified quarterbacks, but he's completing 75% of his passes because it's just checkdowns. It's dink and dunk. Are we going to see him actually maybe possibly could be throw a ball in the vicinity of the end zone because it has not happened yet through 2 games.
Well, a couple of things. One, never do that accent again.
I'm going to. Often.
Never.
Go on.
Never. Trust me, as someone who's been around a lot of Polynesians and someone who's been around the Polynesian culture quite a bit, please don't ever do that again.
I beg of you. Yes. Okay, go on. That's one thing.
Number two. Number two. Why would you?
Answering machine. Go ahead. Number 2.
Who does number 2 work for? Like, look, why would you want Mac Jones to pass it for, an ADOT of 15 to 18 yards? Why would you? It doesn't matter, right? If you're winning games, it doesn't matter, right? Look how this offense was constructed. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could probably speak better to this than I can. Look how this offense was structured in the offseason. Two tight ends.
Yeah.
You got a lot of really good running backs in the backfield, either for injuries or otherwise, right? And your receivers, you have one field stretcher and a guy like Nelson Aguilar, and you have Jacoby Myers is like your possession wide receiver, right? So Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, James White, like everything's operating within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So why would you want to? Bill Belichick is perfectly fine winning games 17-8. And that's all you need. And this defense is playing amazing. Mm-hmm. Like they have been, right? The secondary is probably top 5 in the NFL. I mean, they look like the best secondary, getting like 1,000 interceptions. Yeah. But you have you have Matt Judon, you have a lot of these guys on that defensive line now that can pressure the quarterback. So why would you? And you're going against Jameis Winston. Oh, we saw the old Jameis came back a little bit last week, right? We saw old Jameis come back a little bit. You're not telling me that the Saints are looking at or the Patriots aren't looking at that game film and saying, if we just do exactly what Carolina did, you don't think Jameis is going to throw another 2 interceptions and we get a defensive touchdown, right? And we go up 2 scores. The Belichick go up 2 scores, sit on the ball. Why would you? So I don't think they air it out because they don't have to.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. I don't think they'll be in a hurry. That's for sure. No. It should be an interesting game, especially considering Mac Jones. Sean Payton has come out and talked about it. It's not even a report. Payton has acknowledged that that's a guy that they wanted around draft time. They were looking into trading up to select Mac Jones after the Drew Brees retirement. And, Patriots got there first, basically. Didn't wind up happening. But it is very interesting. In general, by the way, just because they're all going to be on display this week. Through 2 weeks, the 5 first-round selected quarterbacks. Any big revelations? I know, you can't really have an opinion on Trey Lance yet, and Justin Fields you've already talked about. So I guess it's Trevor Lawrence, it's Zach Wilson, Mac Jones you just spent some time on. So those other 2 guys, do you have any overarching thoughts?
About the five rookies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zach Wilson is going to be fine. You take a look at some of the throws that he can make. That's going to get you a long way.
Jets are 10-point dogs in Denver this weekend, by the way.
Yeah, in Denver.
Yeah,
they're better. Yeah, really good quarterbacks don't do well in Denver. That's a tough place to play. Mm-hmm. But I think he's going to be fine in the long run, just because he has the talent, he has the arm strength. Now the Jets organization, he's going to be an uphill battle. But I think he's going to be fine. Mekhi Becton going down, that was big. That was really, really big.
I guess my thing is I agree with you. He's talented. Of course he's talented. He was taken number 2, but he just seems to play out of control. Like they didn't even look like they had a game plan against the Patriots. He was too aggressive. I think he wasn't playing within his means. And for anyone that says Mac Jones does that too much, fine. Zach Wilson, I think needs to be controlled a little bit better.
See, that argument, that's not why you draft him, though, 3rd overall. You don't draft him to be a game manager. Mac Jones is a game manager at the highest level right now for a rookie.
Yep.
That's what he is. He's going to wow you with some nice passes, Mac Jones, but he's not going to win you a game. And he's not going to lose you a game, essentially. Like maybe he'll throw an untimely pick because he's a rookie. But for the most part, he's not going to be put in a position to lose you a game. Mm-hmm. And Robert Saleh came out and said, hey, it's okay to play boring football. This is growing pains for a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback in the biggest market that there is on the face of this earth in New York City. in the New Jersey, New York market, right? Like it's the biggest. So like you don't bring him in essentially to play it safe, because if that was the case, then you shouldn't have drafted Zach Wilson. You should have drafted a guy like Justin Fields,
sure,
right? Who would have been a little bit more responsible with the ball, maybe tuck it instead of, like you mentioned, throwing into double or triple coverage. So yeah, like I just don't like, I don't see them. I don't see him doing that often. I think maybe as a rubber band effect, he goes back to maybe not throwing as many of those passes that have a 50-50 chance of being intercepted. But boy, watching that game, you saw some of these passes against an elite secondary right now. Well, not elite, because Stephon Gilmore needs to come back for this secondary to be elite, but a really good one. He made some really good passes that you don't see made very often in the NFL. So that's why I think he'll be okay. But from a totality standpoint, yeah, I mean, Trevor Lawrence looks like I would argue that Trevor Lawrence is doing the same amount of passes that are irresponsible as Zach Wilson. Yeah. But Zach Wilson, like that defense, like both of them too, right, are not playing well. And Zach Wilson, the top two quarterbacks are asked by, like, this is true with any draft. The top two quarterbacks go to the two of the three of the worst teams coming into this year. And so they're going to be asked to do way more than potentially that they can do. If you can exceed expectation, right? These rookie quarterbacks that do that, like a Justin Herbert, then you got something on your hands. But yeah, I think he'll be fine. I think, again, like I said, the guy I'm most excited about is Justin Fields. I think he can absolutely turn around this Chicago offense. This is a playoff team right now with that defense. And so if they can get some dynamics on this offense, which Justin Fields brings, and Matt Nagy saying that Andy Dalton is their starter once he comes back, I think is a lot of what. Like Justin Fields is going to win.
Fields goes out and wins a couple of games. Yeah, that's going to change in a hurry.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I'm most excited about Fields. I think Wilson will be fine. Lawrence looks like the real deal. Trey Lance, we haven't seen him play yet, so we'll see. Mac Jones he's exactly what we thought he was. Danny Green. And he's in the right, this is like right place, right time, right team, like everything sets up perfectly for him to have a really good career in New England.
We've got a few minutes left, Reid. We've been doing all football so far, as our viewers know, but as Boston prepares for the tennis's Laver Cup, of course, we've got the Ryder Cup going on in golf, my friend. I know you are excited. It's going on out in Wisconsin, Europe, trying to defend its title after, of course, COVID wiped out the tournament last year. What can we expect here from this one? What's getting you going into Friday?
Everything, man. The Ryder Cup is one of the most exciting sporting events to watch, even if you're not a fan of golf, right? Even if you're not a fan of golf, tune into the Ryder Cup because it's so exciting. The fans being back, obviously everyone stay safe, please. But the fans being back at this type of event is second to none in golf. I would argue that it's up there in a lot of people's bucket list items to do from a sporting event, just because of the amount of energy that's there. You see US is minus 215 now. They were minus 190 earlier in the week. So a lot of late money coming in on US. And look, Europe now presents even more of a value at plus 240. They've won 12 of the last 20, Kauf. They've absolutely, decimated the US in the Ryder Cup. But the narrative is talent is on the US side might be too much to overcome for the European team. Experience, though, in this type of matchup is going to play a huge part. Lee Westwood has been in a lot of Ryder Cup. Sergio Garcia has 25, 26 total points in the Ryder Cup, which is more than like 5 of these guys on the US team combined, right? You got a couple of rookies, and so a few rookies on the US team. So Sergio Garcia is an absolute assassin when it comes to the Ryder Cup. Ian Poulter, guy is like Mr. Ryder Cup on the Euro side. He makes every single putt. Rory McIlroy, John Rahm is the number 1 player in the world. I personally like the US to win, but it's not me, though, omitting the fact that I'm taking some player props on the European side, like Vic Hovland, top rookie, Rory to beat Xander in terms of total points, because I think that this European team should not be slept on. Most people aren't, but the lines probably indicate otherwise.
What stands out to you? If there's, you just mentioned a couple, but if there are any other additional props that you think people should be considering before this thing gets going?
Yeah, if you go to, I think it's under team props, maybe. Let me see here. There's one after, actually, maybe not. Maybe it's tournament props. I can't remember exactly which one it was under. It's the to lead after day one. I do think that the United States is better. Is I think is going to be better equipped, even though like in the team matchups, everyone thinks Europe is going to be there. But in terms of the it could be the 4-balls day winner. Let's just do that. That one right there. Foursome or 4-ball. Yeah, that's day 2, I believe, is 4-ball. I think the foursome is day 1. Yeah, there we go. Like US plus 100, Europe plus 200. I think US, on day 2 can prevail. If we go to day 1, the foursome day winner, I think US getting out to a hot start is definitely the one that I'm interested in. If you go right next to that one, Kauf, where it says foursome day winner, yeah, right there. I believe that's day 1.
Day 2.
Is that day 2 as well?
Yeah, day 1 must not be on the board at the moment.
Okay. At any rate, I think the US gets out to an early start. I think when you look at historically, the US has won these matchups. I think 2 or 3 out of the last 5 have gone the US's way. They've led early, and then the singles matches is where the Europeans really pick up a lot of ground. So I do like US coming out to a hot start, but boy, this is going to be exciting. Flip between NFL and Ryder Cup on Sunday, because it's going to be very, very exciting.
It's good to see all our friends out there in the chat watching along. Bizzle, we see you, buddy. Thanks for hanging out with us, all of you for that matter, and hit the like while you're here before you get on out. Remember, the slate comes your way Monday through Friday after the 4 o'clock sim, right around 5 o'clock Eastern time. It's when we began today, and taking you for almost a full hour, leading you into the next sim, which is only moments away. I'll be back with you for an NFL and baseball edition with Steve Buchanan, and I believe it's Matt LaMarca tomorrow. So we'll hang out, have ourselves a good time. And of course, Reid, you can always catch him on the slate, on the sweat, basically daily, even in some other fun videos along the way. All's going well for you? You're not, pulling that luxurious hair out of your head early in football season?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I'm down, I've got an 0-2 starts in some of my fantasy leagues, but I'm not worried. But yeah, but football's it's a busy time for us. And so of course, I gotta be stuck with Buchanan and Edlow on a lot of these shows. So if I'm pulling out my hair, it's because of those two bozos.
Well, remember, no sims tonight because we have Thursday night football on the way. We talked a lot about it here during this one. It's Carolina, it's Houston, it's a blowout, but make your lineups and chase that million. He's Reid T. Fowler. I'm Adam Kaufman. Thanks to Amon, as well as undercover boss Tom.
Goodbye.
We'll get out of here. We'll see. I know Reid wants to go. I'm going to go too. See you next time. Bye-bye.